Hello, I'm MBX Toycat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography of Toycat for you all. It's everyone's favourite second channel series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff, and I figured I've done so many episodes of Geography of Toycat where I've spoken about so many different parts of the world, and by the way, you can probably check those out in a playlist, but I've never done one on one of the parts of the world which is closest to my heart, both emotionally speaking, but also physically speaking, because my heart is, physically close, located very, very close to London. London is my closest city, it's the one I've chose to base myself near, and I figured I'd explain exactly why that is. Why is London such a big deal? First of all, iconically speaking, because you have heard of London. It's one of the most iconic cities in the world. No matter which country you're watching this video from, even if you're on the other side of the globe and you've never seen a map before and you never watched a YouTube video before, if that is you, hi by the way, but if you've never seen a map before, you've still heard of London some way. I think I'd explain why that is, why it is so important historically, but also why it is so important economically in terms of like size, and also why, in terms of like transport and getting people in and out of places, why London is such a big deal. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing in today's video. Hopefully you'll do enjoy it. Get ready to buy London because I'm going to be selling it to you. Because again, I will say, subjectively speaking, from my own opinion, I do think London is one of the greatest cities, and that is why I've decided to live near it. So to explain that, in short, let's start by explaining kind of the size of London, because to explain that, I should probably explain the UK and why that's so important, because although I've lived in the UK my entire life, or England in particular my entire life, I feel, and we're kind of taught like, oh yeah, it's the best here. I feel like if you were to look at this country from an outsider perspective, like look at the globe and say, oh yeah, there's a tiny island. It used to own a lot, but now it's just a tiny island with like 1% of the world's population. Not even that, less than 1%. But if you look at it in terms of like other stats and you compare it to like, oh yeah, well in terms of like countries in the world, it's top 20 by population. If you look at economies in the world, it's the 5th biggest on the planet, despite being this tiny island. It is kind of a big deal, proportionally speaking. I guess punching above its weight is the best way to put it. And part of the reason it does that is because of London. So London is the capital city of both England, one of the constituent countries of the UK, but also the UK in general. The UK Parliament and most of its executive stuff is in London itself, and the reason for that is, and also I guess it would be the British Empire too, and yeah, as a result of that, it's also, or I guess maybe as part of that, it's also the biggest city in the UK, and it's not the biggest city by a little bit. 8.7 million people live in London, and compare that to the second biggest city, you might be like, oh yeah, it's kind of close, it's at 7 million. It's not even a close contest. The second biggest city, which by most measurements is Birmingham, is just over 1 million people versus London's 8.7 million. That means that if you take the second biggest, the third biggest, the fourth, etc., through the 10th, so 9 of the other biggest cities in the UK, they even all combined, they do not have the same population as London. And London's not even just massive in comparison to other UK cities, it's massive in comparison to other European cities. So here's a list of the largest cities in the UK, again, in the EU by population. Again, while we're in it, this will be messy later, but this is London at 8.67 million. Then here is Berlin at 3.5 million. It's literally more than double. It's like 2.5 times the next biggest city, and after that, they all trail off again. So yeah, London is a lot bigger than not only any other city in the UK, not only any other city in Europe, if you exclude Moscow, because things get messy there. It's also just one of the biggest cities in the world. It's bigger than any city in America, depending on which, in the United States, depending on which kind of measurement you want to use right there. It's bigger than lots of cities from other continents, and basically, yeah, it is one of the major cities of the world. That's the key point I want to stress here. So yeah, lots of people live there. It's a very economically productive place. Oh, fun fact, in terms of like how many people live there, more people live in London, this one city in England, than live in Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and I think like the northeast of England, all combined. So yeah, lots of people live here, and as a result, it's a very economically productive place. 1/5 of the entire UK's, wealth, and therefore, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. 1/5 of that 5th largest economy all comes from this one city, and that is just massively unprecedented in terms of other places. So yeah, they're a big place, but let's talk about why it is so important beyond just lots of people live there, because I feel like that argument only goes so far. People like, oh yeah, it's the biggest place, but so what? So yeah, having lots of people and being able to drain in people from such a big reach, like, people can commute in from Paris if they really want to London. Having such a big drain of people from so many people means you're going to get, lots of businesses want to come there and get all these people, which means that you can just have this always growing size of just like, yeah, absorb all the people, make a big compact block of them. But, again, beyond that, why is London such a big deal? Because there are other cities that are bigger. Tokyo is bigger, Shanghai is bigger, Beijing is bigger. So why London? So first of all, obviously it is English speaking, and it's basically the root of the Western world. Like, the UK is one of the longest lasting countries in its its current form since, I think it's since 1066, and the parliamentary democracy, the Westminster system of parliament has been around since something like 1200. It's been like 800 years of this same system of governance. Obviously, of varying powers up and down, and now there's devolved parliaments, but there's been like 800 years of this, and this means there's a lot of history, both in terms of like the democracy, in terms of like, I guess, again, Western culture. If you look at the United States, your history only goes back to the 1700s, and then before that, you're British. If you go to a lot of places, the history kind of comes back to here, and that's one of the reasons why it's so big historically. But also in terms of stuff like, okay, the birth of the railway. All of the railways in the UK link into London, and the UK's railway system was the first. If you look at something as simple as like, oh yeah, the time zone system. So if you're wondering how we decide what's west and east in the world, we basically decided that the London in particular, it's Greenwich Park. You can go to the Greenwich Observatory and you can see the prime meridian. That is the line we decided we'd draw down the center of the earth and decide everything on that side is the west, everything on that side is the east. That's how we decided. That was decided in London. Again, because so much of the early, I guess, progress of, again, Western society, I want to say humanity, but that's a bit pushing it far, happened in London. The first underground network in the entire world happened in London. London was the first place to need one, and lots of big deals like this happened in London first, and therefore there's lots of history, and some of that is active still today. Like, for instance, one of the reasons people like to go to London is because we still have a royal family, and the royal family, to some extent, I mean, it's not all the time, still live in the UK. There are palaces. Buckingham Palace is, I think, the most famous example, right, where you can go in the UK and see stuff. So there's no Street View for some reason, but, oh wait, no, there it is. This is Buckingham Palace, one of the homes of the Queen, and you can just go there. Oh, that's where she lives, and you can go right to the gate if you want to. And by the way, it's like in the bit like central of London, so it's really messy. But still, that's a crazy thing. Right next to it, there's another palace just slightly further down the road. There are palaces. There is okay. So if we get, let me show you Westminster Abbey too. There are all these landmarks that are just so famously known, and that is something that is a big deal. But yeah, just besides history. Okay, so yeah, stuff happened there. Stuff happened everywhere. You know, if you go to like Japan, you can see the birth of fireworks. That's China, I know, but you can see stuff everywhere. What is about London in particular? Well, there's also the fact that London is one of the transport hubs of the world. So bear in mind that it is really ideally placed because, again, even though it's the economic thing is a big factor, but also in terms of just geographically placed. So if you want to fly from the United States to anywhere in Europe, it makes sense to have your stopover in London because, you know, it's the first place you get to. Then you can fly out from there to anywhere with another 3-hour flight rather than being like, oh, let's fly to Norway first and then do it there. The other place, if you're going from, you know, there to across the world, Finland is a good place. But in terms of transatlantic, the UK is a great stopping point, and as a result of that, London, again, even this is just unprecedented for any other city, has 6 separate official airports. So there's the one giant airport which lives directly in the London boundaries. This is the only one which is actually in London, and Heathrow Airport for the longest time was the busiest and biggest airport in the world. There's a lot of reasons why it's not right now. It gets political if you want to go into that, but yeah, Heathrow Airport was the biggest airport in the world, and it's just one of 6 airports that belongs to London. There's a second one. I lied, actually. There's a second one that's in London, and this one's in the city of London by itself. The City of London Airport, or London City Airport. This one's just over here. Again, very, very, very close. This one's really business heavy, and there aren't many flights actually going into it. Then, the third airport is London Luton Airport, this one over here, mainly for low-cost airlines. Again, most of these airports are bigger than most countries' biggest airports. Then we've got London Stansted, which is, again, known for low-cost flights, but it has a lot more destinations. It's the one you're probably flying into if you've got a low-cost flight. We've got London Gatwick, which is the second biggest airport in the UK, and is kind of like, again, it's massive, bigger than a lot of countries' major airports, or a lot of states' major airports. And then finally, we've got London Southend Airport. All 6, okay, wait, just over here. All 6 of these airports are just for London itself. Just one city has 6 separate airports, and they're all incredibly busy airports too. So, yeah, in terms of like airport air transfer hubs, it's one of the hubs of the thing. It's also the hub of the UK train network, which again, oldest in the world, fun fact. But it's every single basically if you're in a major city like in Birmingham or in Leicester or in Liverpool or in Manchester, there's probably a giant station that's like, oh yeah, that is your station. London has a whole host of them. There's King's Cross and this is a mess to look at. There's King's Cross and there's St Pancras here. Again, all of these are just giant stations. there is, there's Euston here. There's something like, I think it's 10 separate stations, all link into London and link London to the rest of the country. The rail network is basically built around going into London, then going from London somewhere else. It's the same thing as an airline's hub system, but it all comes into the centre of London, and then you transfer on the underground. And yeah, that is just how the train system works. Also, London is the only place in the UK where you can catch a train to another country. It's the only international train station in the UK at St Pancras, the Eurostar. You can catch it to Paris or to Brussels or indirectly to anywhere in Europe. Yeah, not only is it one of the biggest cities in Europe in terms of economics and in terms of like history, and stuff goes back really far to there, but also London is one of the cities which is best connected in Europe. It connects the US to all of Europe, it connects Europe to all of the US in a lot of cases because of its hub status, and it connects all of the UK together. And that is why London is a big deal. So if you like lots of people coming together and just creating stuff, if you want to be one of those people that comes together and creates stuff and gets paid a lot for it, if you want to be somewhere that's connected to everywhere in the world, I have never had to take I've never had to take a stopover flight. Like, I generally don't know how LA works. I've never even had the option to have a cheaper flight, because from London, from any of those 6 airports, which I could get to all within less than 2 hours, from one of those 6 airports will go to literally anywhere in the world. I mean, maybe like some small regional airport, no, but any major destination in the world can be gone to directly through London. And that is the crazy thing about London. It is the biggest city in Europe, and it's pretty cool. And there's history and tourist stuff too, which makes it big on that. So yay. And also it's got like the oldest and the most iconic of a lot of different stuff. And yeah, why have you heard of London? Because it's a cool city. Yeah. So I think I've gone through everything I wanted to say today. That's why I think London's pretty cool. I guess this was like, instead of this was just being about, oh yeah, this is the thing about this place, it was, this is why you should live here, and that's why I live as close as you can live to, oh yeah, because the house prices are so insane that to live, like, even within the city limits of London, you kind of have to, like, sell everything you own, and then you still won't do it. So I live very far out from London, I'll say that, like, within the commuter belt, I guess you call it. And, because again, London kind of expands all the way around here, if you want to think of it that way. But anyway, with that said, I'm running out of words to say, and time to say it then. So I'll see you all in the next YouTube video. Bye! Okay, this one will actually be on a Saturday, by the way.